How do I create a slicer? A slicer allows us to run a user-friendly filter on a pivot table. In this example, we are interested in the details for Shakma baboon and monitor lizard. We note that all three countries have been selected in both pivot tables, and we decide that an additional slicer for country is required. Place the cursor in the first pivot table, then PivotTable Analyse, insert slicer, search for the field that the slicer should be created for, in this case country, and select it. A slicer is more effective for an important field that has a limited number of entries. Move the slicer to a suitable location and then select South Africa and Uganda. Multiple selections are enabled via the Control key. We can see that only the first pivot table has responded. We would like the slicer to be applicable to both tables. Select the slicer, right-click, Report Connections. In a previous step, we specified the names of the pivot tables to reflect what and where they are. In this case, add the pivot table in columns I to J to the slicer. The details of our selected animals, in combination with our selected countries, are now displayed in both pivot tables. A point to note is that a slicer only applies to multiple pivot tables if the pivot tables are using the same data source, that is, the same rows and columns. By clearing the filter, in both of these slices, we can see the original information. Related topics we discuss in other data insights are: how do I create a pivot table? How do I change the name of a pivot table? In summary, a slicer can be created to run a user-friendly filter on a pivot table via PivotTable Analyse and Insert Slicer.